Today we're going to be playing some Japanese jank, a cult classic RPG from 1993 about the history of life on Earth and evolution. Say hello to E.V.O, the search for Eden. It's a rather unique little slice of gaming history. Now, way back when, I was one of the many people let down by Spore. A combination of the early promises and my imagination running away with what the game would be left me disappointed. I learned a valuable lesson in getting caught up in the hype, but I was still left wanting a game that explored evolution as a gameplay mechanic. And that led to me uncovering E.V.O, also known as 4.6 billion year story. The game covers the evolution of life from fish to early man. In each era, we play as a different species and explore prehistoric Earth. It's a fascinating, unique, and ambitious title with plenty to like. But I've never finished it. I've tried. I've restarted this game at least once a year since 2008. Furthest I got was to the Ice Age, but by then I've cooled on the game and slide off of it. So, as this show sometimes is, I'm making a video to give myself that push to finally see it through. Understand why it kept losing me along the way. And I want to take you along with me on a journey over an absurd amount of time, with an absurd premise, and an even more absurd payoff. It may have taken a while, but I promise, it proved to be worth it. I'll give a spoiler warning, but if you know your animals, you may see where this story is going. Or at the very least, you think you do. That may be my favourite bit of music composed for a 16-bit system. I mean, right away, this game has some gravitas. The beauty, mystery, and scale of life on Earth is there in that music. The soundtrack was composed by Koichi Sugiyama, and there's a lot of good in here. And because it's him, that means it has a symphonic synth suite. The setup is a curious one, a marrying of intelligent design and evolution.
The banana and the hand are perfectly made one for the other.
Brought together under the banner of sun worship, which I'm sure will annoy people in all three camps. The sun summons Gaia, his daughter, and tells her that from here on out, every 1 billion years she will have children, called life. And he has a bright idea to spice the whole thing up. If a creature completes the trial of life, the survival of the fittest, they will become her partner and join her in Eden. The sun wants a son-in-law. All he has to do is win evolution. I've no clue how the hell you judge that, because you can't really. But still, I really like this setup. It gets me pumped to get out there and curb stomp a crocodile for thinking it could stop changing. And framing life on Earth as a giant competition is clever. Now, this setup falls apart if you think about it, and I already thought about it, so let's just get going. Gaia then welcomes us to this hell reality. We're told we'll be journeying through many periods, with the ultimate goal being to make it to Eden, and we're going to have to travel alone. It's going to be hard to evolve without procreation, but I guess the sun wants us chaste. Good luck. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna need it. And we begin in 500 million BC. Well, it's nice to know he'll be turning up. In the Ocean of Origin, it seems the battle is already underway as a grizzled jellyfish welcomes us to the fight. He gives us some awful advice, maybe on purpose. He says there's only one rule, survival of the fittest, then says to remember the 3 rules. Fight for survival and food, only move forward, never back, and evolve and become strong.
Well, this is a very dangerous world, isn't it?
Not as dangerous as your fucking formatting. Ow. So one thing that's amusing and really frustrating for editing is the text boxes. Localization is slapdash across the board, but these are incredibly lousy. Near enough every scene has sentences get cut off or an entire box just for the last word or two. I don't doubt that worse text boxes exist, but these are the worst I've seen. It helps if you imagine every animal just searching for that word they're missing. Anyway, back to what the jellyfish was saying. In the very next stage, you have to enter a cave, get a hint, then backtrack and leave. In fact, backtracking is pretty commonplace. I'm not sure why I'm complaining so much considering I ate the bugger, so it's not like his survival advice held water to begin with. And a lot of this first chapter is just swimming the seas, getting into scrapes, eating things, figuring life out. Movement feels weighty but responsive. We can double tap to dash, which is a little awkward to trigger, but it's great since I feel like a flying teeth missile. And the combat is basic but enjoyable. We have a bite attack, a big ram, and if you get a horn, a pointy ram. All 3 of these attacks are very dedicated and all have different benefits and drawbacks. Each hit feels deliberate and meaty. The fact there's barely iframes and we lose all control when we're whacked is a little annoying, but we have more than enough health to compensate. The enemies don't put up much of a fight, but since the attacks feel satisfying, it's not that bad, which is good, because you're going to be biting things a lot. The creatures then drop meat you have to eat to gain EVO points and recover health. Wait, hang on a second. Well, sorry herbivores. There's no critical hits or anything, but instead we've got critical meat. I like this. It's like the game occasionally lets me grind less. And we spend EVO points to level up. This is the best aspect of the game right here. So that's how we're doing it. Or not doing it. You spend points on parts and these modify the appearance of your creature, and you can get some real monstrosities going. Obviously, it's not just aesthetic differences. Some parts take away or bolster the strength of others. There's a little bit of a balancing act to it, but I will say it doesn't quite reach its full potential. Since the game is combat heavy, it's best to just prioritize damage and health. And things like movement, speed, and defense will still wind up pretty strong anyway, so you really don't need to put much thought into it. If you just buy the most expensive parts, which takes about 20-30 minutes of grinding, you will become the apex predator of your era. Though there are some options that are purely side grades, like being big or small. Do you want more health or do you want to be harder to hit? The amount of work done just on your creature's animations, considering the variety of looks you can achieve, must have been staggering. The stages are strange. They're more like hunting grounds that you can just pass through. You're not in much actual danger, especially as we start packing on the upgrades. Most enemies couldn't kill us if they wanted to. It makes it feel like I'm just bumbling through. One level just locks you in with a school of fish for a couple of minutes before opening up and letting you continue. Unless you follow a cryptic hint you get earlier and evolve an angler horn, which turns this place into dinner time. I'm sad to say this is the only instance of a body part that changes how other creatures behave. But hey, if you're angling to get big quick, this is the way to do it. After swimming aimlessly for a while, we do bumble into some story. The seaweed mentioned that the Strolites are trying to release oxygen to support life on land, but the Kurisalaki are somehow coercing them into not doing that. Air-rated about the lack of air, we storm the Kurisalaki's cave. Being these self-proclaimed kings of the sea, these old misnamed sharks aren't gonna let others get to land. By the way, watch this shit. This fight wakes you up. Give the son of a bitch his crown. It may look simple, I mean he's a bullfight boss after all, but it's a tight space, the edges are rough so you can get caught in them, and he can just decide to halt at any point in his charge and change direction. Not to mention his damage is a massive step up. I'm basically as hardy as I can get in this chapter. Enemies were scratching me, but he vaporizes my health. With his absurd damage, large size, and my lack of recovery, I just get locked down and killed. I guess that's that. Here comes Gaia to see me off. Or not? She's bringing us back. She asks us not to rat her out to her dad, which, well, rats don't exist yet, so I'm jumping the gun there. Not that jumping or guns exist either. Obviously I'm gonna take it, but it's not like we're gonna have survival of the fittest if we get do-overs. But that's fine. It's not like anyone in this competition knows what that phrase actually means. Maybe that's why all the creatures keep respawning. Gaia's just too nice for this deathmatch. And she sees me a few more times before this fight is over. It's a great stride in difficulty. It just seems no matter how much damage I'm doing, I'll eventually get flummoxed into taking a hit or two, and that's all it takes. You know what? Forget the angler's horn. Let's try charging him. And I got my health back. Okay, I had never noticed this in all of my years playing. You know what? How about we just forget the horn? Evolving refills our health. Well, hey, this boss is pretty cheap, and if we're already cheating, let's go all the way. Mysterious time stream heals me. This fight is still a bastard, but now so am I. So I and the rest of the world can breathe easy, as the biggest, baddest Kurisalaki is defeated. Boss meat! Celebratory music plays and oxygen that may as well be fireworks signal our victory, as we make it to, Pange. And we become the baddest beast on land, and Gaia rewards us with an amphibian body. Oh. Well, you may have saved us from death, but let's call it even. Alright, off I go. Gaia gives us a brief. We're now in the Age of Amphibians. She says there should be more large plants around, but something is wrong. I mean, hey, that doesn't concern me. I'm a carnivore after all. The chapter starts with us eating a crystal and getting a hint. The fact it's in quotations makes me suspicious, and after the jellyfish, I'm not sure I'm ready to trust any advice this game gives me. Still, this is one of E.V.O's most fascinating moments. I may need to go through the grind again, and it's a bit longer this time, but the gameplay has evolved along with our creature. Now we have to contend with jumping, some light platformer elements, along with stats governing the damage jumping deals and jump height. Increases in jumping strength are pointed to and rewarded with insects flying overhead for us to eat. With the fact insects can't be reached at first pointing to the fact that jumping is something the player can improve. This chapter also introduces a day-night cycle with animal behaviours changing depending on what time it is, so the gameplay got more complex along with us. However, once again, the start of this chapter does feel aimless. The stage is more like exhibits than challenges. Save for the small handful of mazes throughout the game, this doesn't change. We overhear voices from above, talking about green crystals that can reverse evolution. This is both a gameplay mechanic and a story conspiracy. We'll be hearing about these crystals for years to come. One of my favourite little scenes is meeting a school of sealerfish who have dropped out of the competition and decided to just stop evolving. Yeah, you and the crocodiles, who aren't here yet. And then we bumble our way through Acastiga lands on a rampage until we challenge Debustiga. Look, even with the exploit, which I'm not breaking out as a first resort, I can still die before I can save myself, and it costs points to use. This boss is a test of those new jumping skills, and exploiting the game. The whole reason we come to blows is he thinks I think he looks funny, and I look like a miniature version of him. Granted, I do think I look funny, so he's not wrong, and by the time I win, it's not even true anymore. By then, it's just a cycle of one-sided immortal violence. The Elder mistakes this as us saving the Acastiga from his tyranny, and conscripts us into a war with the insects, who have started evolving abnormally. They're trying to destroy all plant life, uncaring that they're going to bring the world to ruin in doing so. They sent that kid's dad off to treat with the Bee King, but he never came back. So let's get going! Yep, the war with the insects seems pretty dire. Over at the Bee King's cave, it seems negotiations broke down. I should point out that something I find fascinating about this story is that it treats us like the hero. In all but one era, we are the ones making sure the world doesn't die. I don't buy that we're in it for that. No morality is guiding our actions or slowing us down, as I have to trigger the king bee by eating his young. You have evolved strangely. Did you use the crystal's power? No, but I have evolved strangely. And wow, a boss that was actually pretty easy. Onto the desert. Oh hey, here comes someone else with a tip. Magasu here tells me I don't need to evolve any further, then tells me there are strong enemies ahead. I say he should evolve his trickery. Sadly for him, he's right where he wanted to trick and wrong where he wanted to frighten. The desert can barely scratch me. As we march our way to the Queen Bee, and she is a lot tougher. Yeah, this is the pattern. They undershoot the difficulty of the stages so that before long you'll outclass any standard enemy, but then the bosses are unbelievably difficult. It's like someone snuck a boss rush into an orthogenesis exhibit. Stages are less challenges. As I said, they're hunting grounds or showcases for animals or the ongoing narratives in each era. It's heavy on presentation, and I think it's a cool experience. But don't get comfortable. It's also just that bosses can be terribly designed and our ability to move is never quite good enough to evade everything they'll throw our way, and getting gummed up by one hit is really all that it can take. However, I do appreciate that besides the exploit, there is a way to lock down nearly all of the bosses and put the hurt on, potentially even killing them without giving any room for countering. Nature's cruel and E.V.O knows that it goes both ways. I mean, it's either that or half-baked design. And so the plants are saved. And as thanks, we're turned into a reptile. Yeah, call it the land before taste because we look dopey as all hell. Look at that expression. We're already tired of Gaia doing this for us. You'd think dinosaurs would be the centerpiece, but it's a bit of a letdown. I mentioned there's good music here, and there is. It's just that a majority of the time you won't be hearing it. The ocean chapter started strong, birthplace of all life. It's a gorgeous track. Even with all the strangeness on display, this music keeps things in perspective, makes that period of life seem mystical, miraculous. Then as you snake your way through the caves, it gets a bit darker, a bit more daunting. And as you approach Kurisalaki, the music gets us ready for a showdown. I mean, after all, we've got something to fight for. And the boss music is fantastic for a showdown between beasts. The music here gave aim to a mostly aimless journey. I have no idea what's going on. I'm a fish for sun's sake. But it's beautiful. Then as you get to the Age of Amphibians... I mean, I guess they're harder to take seriously. It makes me think a lot less of Proceedings since this sounds far more laid back, far goofier. The harshest thing I could say about this track is that it's like the game has lost respect for its own subject matter. I mean, the desert at least then had a track to fit the situation, a slow, creeping tune befitting an encroaching desert that we're fighting to stop. Then dinosaurs, megafauna, some of the biggest beings to ever walk the earth. It sounds so daft, I really dislike it. I don't know what it is, I don't know why they settled on this. I think Koichi Sugiyama fucking hates dinosaurs. They could have just played this track and it would have been an improvement. Just recycle this. You'd think the dinosaurs would get a track to complement their size and strength. This does not help me as I restart the grind. And my issue is that this track will now get remixed and used as the music for most stages for the rest of the game. So as I said, there is good music, you just won't be hearing it most of the time. But hey, it's fitting. This chapter is the bumbliest so far, and I've already bumbled a lot. We find a dad who's sad to have lost his son and he tells us to leave. I try and take his mind off it, but that doesn't go so well. Yeah, thanks. A continent over, I find that kid getting bullied by frogs. As payment for saving him, I'm given a rumor about Mount Brave. This good deed is followed with the most morbid and difficult boss yet, a standoff against the Prime Frog. Her tactic is to send a swarm of her spawn at you. And it's overwhelming. You've got to rush her down or you're going to get crushed under a wave of her young. You just can't commit infanticide fast enough. And that's the plot. We reunite one family and massacre another. I can tell why I fell off this game. Besides not knowing about the exploit, I can't overstate how much of this game is a repetitive grind. I spend a long time not really feeling like I'm achieving much, then a boss comes along and kicks my ass. I know, evolution can take a while. So, am I allowed to judge it? Yes. It's not all bad. This chapter does give us some new options. We can now play as a biped, which gives us greater jumping power and I believe greater reach with our attacks. We can also become a bird. It does reset you to an awful form, so you have to grind again. And the bird has worse overall stats, but not by a meaningful degree. Not to mention, flying is for the birds. It's just not that useful. Rats. And at long last, we confront the Tyrannosaurs. They mention they've been granted power by the crystal, and that defeating me will be as easy as lifting a baby, but, well, not with those arms. It's a horde of the buggers. A very slow, awkward horde that can barely attack me. I don't think the crystal did much for their tactics. And, well, we can't question them about the crystal, because the fight is interrupted when meteors start falling to Earth. Gaia warps us out of there, and the Age of Dinosaurs comes to an end. I think saying they'll speak of this for generations is a bit of an understatement, but we're playing as characters with a very skewed sense of time. Next up, the Ice Age. Just based on the world map, the Ice Age seems like a good time, but I do have questions. You know, I'm rather thankful to the asteroid. It meant Gaia didn't have time to steal our body from us, so the spirits of the dinosaurs instead give us a choice, to remain as we are, or become a mammal. I'd go for it. Man, talk about class switching in RPGs, this is a real class switch. Except, mechanically, not really. Mammals have greater defense and health, along with the ability to kick, something reptiles can never do. They've also got a lot of parts to choose from, but they're more expensive, which means grinding for longer. Still, several chapters in, I like that the game gives us the option. If we're tired of grinding, we can opt out. This does lock us out of the Ascent to Homo sapien, but humanity's always been a mixed bag. I want to talk about the game's writing quickly. Not only the text box is rather poor, what's in them isn't much grander. Nobody says die in this game. Everything is defeated. Now, this game is trying to be kid-friendly. E.V.O presents a fantastical and simplified, but still harsh account of life on Earth. Though I love the use of defeated here in particular, because it's referring to the KT extinction event. It's as though it was a fair fight between the dinosaurs and a very fast rock. Alongside that, it's just an awful translation with very ropey dialogue and awful formatting. A lot of animal names changed for no good reason. It's not like they've been made much simpler to understand or pronounce, and I've been pronouncing them wrong anyway. Obviously, outside of the very basic timeline of life on Earth, this game isn't intended to be educational, but I can imagine this sparking a kid's interest. It's just that after that, they won't have the right names for most things to look them up. And in the next cavern over, we find some dinosaurs still, well, not kicking obviously, but very much alive. It's a sorry state of affairs. They're scared of me, some tiny rat cat thing. We find plenty of dinosaurs the world over, actually. They're apparently dying out, but they seem to be getting on just fine. One thing I will praise about this game is the animal variety. I have complained a lot about the grind and the aimlessness, but it is definitely alleviated by the sheer amount of animals on display, many of which have different behaviors, different attack patterns, and different strategies for dealing with. And this does go to the boss fights as well. Every single one really is its own animal. Except for the king and queen bee, but hey, that's only fair. This does wind up feeling more like a test bed for enemy behaviors than a curated gameplay challenge, but at the very least, it makes the world seem diverse and alive, which is quite valuable. Even in this chapter where they are reusing dinosaurs, and I mean, hey, they can get away with it, it's fine because there is still plenty of new life to consume along with them. And part of that new life is the Yeti. Most everyone we meet is scared to death of the thing. Some have trekked entire continents to get away from it. Likely unaware the beast is trapped behind an immovable ice block. Being the big ferocious bastard we are, we want that out the way. Eventually we make it to question mark. We may have named the domains of various animals, but this ice pillar is befuddling us. And we're kidnapped and taken to a flying fortress filled with intelligent birdmen. This section is unique. It's a really annoying platforming teleporter maze that's really not a whole lot of fun in and of itself. But it does present the one scenario in the game where I felt like I had to evolve in order to adapt for circumstances. What a novel concept. Owing to the long jumps, I sacrificed my health and defense in order to evolve a body capable of making these leaps. Now the tragic part is none of this was actually necessary. It turns out you just have to back into a certain teleporter, which is incredibly fucking annoying. But I was still left with a thought. In a game about evolution, this is the one time I thought it got evolution. I wish we had a version of E.V.O that understood that evolution is about adaptation to environment. Imagine sections where you could scale down your character to take shortcuts through cramped spaces, make yourself light enough to cross fragile ground, or hey, on the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe get heavy enough to smash through something. It would vary up the ways you had to evolve and make the game less repetitive. Now granted, with the game as it is, it may add to the grind and likely be rather annoying, as you would need more points for the more frequent changes. I mean, you can save bodies and spend green crystals to return to them, but that's a limited resource. If you could buy parts and then freely return to them, it would encourage experimentation, but that would not cut down on menu usage, and these menus are functional but clunky. And if they didn't fix the health exploit, this game would break more than it already has. In E.V.O, all you really need to do all the time is buy the most expensive parts. And what's funny is that what I'm suggesting goes against the story, which treats evolution as something that has an endpoint where we're the best we can be. Evolution isn't something that actually has a pinnacle. What survival of the fittest means is the most fit for environment. It's about adaptation. So we couldn't really win. But hey, to cut back a second, I get it, that's not what this story is about, but I think there's a lot of gameplay potential unrealized because of it. Anyway, we eventually make it to the Bird King, and the power of the crystals lets him shoot plasma. Shitting sun, this fight is a nightmare. Luckily you get juggled so high that even on 0 health I can get out of it. That's right, I'm evolving beyond death. 0 hit points means nothing to me because I've evolved before I hit the ground. This whole competition really is a sham, and I sort of love that the story becomes a farce along with it. Every villain is a big old cheater because they're using the crystals to advance their own evolution and gain an unfair advantage. Now Gaia doesn't care for that one bit, and it's presented as evil. But I can't really begrudge them because, you know, I'm worse. I'm cheating in not only the same way, but several others, and happily so. It's really just the people who are organising this competition have no clue what's going on, and it's happening right under their noses. You know what? Another tact. I think E.V.O knows this. Here's some creatures who say using the crystal is wrong and that they'll evolve the right way. What do? They spend all day headbutting each other. This is what the game really thinks of people who play fair. Now, for all of my complaints about the premise, I do like it. Like I said, it got me excited. I also think it got tossed out pretty much immediately. I feel more like a secret agent getting dropped into different time zones to make sure everyone is playing by all the rules I break, rather than a participant in a planet-wide showdown. Now, each chapter does present their own little animal vignettes, and the daft story is keeping me entertained as I pick at it, but I'm not too big on the fact that it always comes around to these bloody crystals. So, in trying to get to the Yeti, we collapse Fort Birdman, and that really breaks the ice. This fight is a lot more straightforward, but he's so fast he can just turn you inside out in moments. Then I figured out if I just stand still and keep kicking, he can't really get past that. His wife, on the other hand, has a counter. This is why you become a mammal. Reptiles can't kick. And even with the exploit, this fight is horrific. They can kill me faster than I can cheat. I have to keep them in my rhythm. But if I mistime it or I just get unlucky, I'm on the back foot trying to get them with the back foot. Alright, we bring them down. And boy, do I feel like a big hero. Now no one has anything to fear. And then their kid comes out and starts crying over his dead parents. And Gaia, sensing an awkward situation, decides to just send us ahead 10 million years. Sorry, bud. Welcome to the final era of the game. The dinosaurs are extinct, mammals are the dominant form of life, and hey, the world's taking shape. We're still a mammal, and pretty much the top of the food chain, or at least as far up as the game has allowed. It promised we can become man, but I haven't found an option yet. There's nowhere for the gameplay to really go, so the story decides to pick up the slack by packing in as much insanity as it can in its final hours. We begin with a tour of the Americas, eating our way across the continent in another set of dioramas. It turns out grizzlies aren't that dangerous. We meet the last remaining dinosaurs hiding away in the forest, and in return for sparing their lives, they'll tell us about these strange animals that evolved with the face of a cat and the body of a rabbit. Huh. Weird. Okay, for those in the audience screaming at me, that was a very awkwardly phrased hint for something that I didn't quite get. Yeah, I'm an ass. We then assault a cave belonging to the monkey-human tribe, and you better believe these guys were corrupted by the crystal in some way. This maze can actually be pretty dangerous. It's like we're playing a stage in a video game. The monkeys have a bunch of attack patterns and traps, and at the end of the cave we find the descendant of those Yeti. And they're still mad at us 10 million years later. So, we never actually solved the Yeti problem. In fact, we may have made it worse. That's not the craziest part. After defeating him, we find a flock of flightless birds. They stand around ruins in the desert, looking up at the sky and crying over the destruction of Fort Birdman. Grudges carry in this reality. The bird I speak to says it was removed by some strange force. I'd say I keep my mouth shut, but that's not quite true. We then wander to the final ocean. Gaia tells us to go save the whales from the Rogons. Oh, it's good to see the sealerfish are still at it, and the Kurisalaki stuck to their underwater guns. Wait. One nice thing about the kick is that it applies gravity to enemies. We defeat the Rogon pretty easily, and the King Whale thanks us in his underwater palace. This clears the clouds over Africa, and then the game hopes we can figure this out. Africa is a bit of a boss rush. Every creature here has sworn fealty to a being in the north. With the crystal's power, he gave them back their strength, saved them from extinction, or just gave them a place to be. He's done more for others than I have, cheaters or not. The new queen bee is quite respectful. Her duty to him is to not let us pass. Yeah, that's understandable. The Tyrosaurs say they were made a very important ancestor. The translators missed a trick by not calling them very important predators. And up in the north, we make it to the entrance to Eden. Ah, here it is. And it's a caveman! A Cro-Main, standing in our path. He belonged to the monkey-human tribe, but they shunned him for having less hair and being smarter. Well, sounds conceited to me. He can smash you off the stage. He gets his health back from this. You don't. This attack also has pretty good range, so I found the safest way to beat him was to basically get into a loop where I have to take damage to deal damage, but at least he can't just reset the fight. Inside the cave leading to Eden, we have to traverse a maze filled with dino people. They say they have to seal off the crystal because it's dangerous, and Eden is closed until then. And being our usual selves, we start eating everyone in sight, while they try and keep us at bay with ki blasts and by summoning slimes. That's fine, the more the merrier. Also, I've had this story a bit wrong. This wasn't so much a battle to reach the apex of evolution, no. It was worse. It was a race to reach this cave that likely didn't exist until very recently. The last several hundred million years could just get fucked. Thanks for all your effort in this life and death relay. The winner is gonna be this fuck who just got to skip massive chunks of time. And as we get near the room where they store the crystal, it violently explodes. And by jumping into the energy stream, we're sent to a strange, otherworldly chamber. It's here we confront Bolbox, the strongest creature in the world, a caveman who ate the crystals and mutated into some strange giant amoeba thing. The entrance to Eden is actually right behind him. He made it here first, but Gaia shut the door and won't let him in. And so it's time for a showdown between the world's two biggest cheaters. He throws out crystals that spawn some new creatures. It's a pretty inventive final boss actually, with some recolors alongside new foes, and some remixed enemies that really caught me off guard. And between fights we have to gnaw on his appendage. It's a big drawn out fight, and rather difficult, rife with many of the problems of the former ones. But hey, I came here with a full stomach, so it's all good. And with Bolbox defeated, I think Gaia just rushes to end the competition. It's been a complete shambles and, that's it. We're still not human. The sun grants us intelligence, which makes the whole journey so much better in retrospect. Everyone thought we were saving the world, but for us, it was just an all-you-can-eat buffet. And wondering what the hell we just got up to, we walk off into an unknown future. And on Mars, the Martians regret interfering with life on Earth, and vow to only step in if we need help. Well, I'm really glad I made you look yourselves in the mirror. The credits roll, the main theme plays, and it's still beautiful, but I am left more than a little bit befuddled. In all of my years not finishing this game, that's not where I expected it to wind up. Even with stuff like the giant queen bee, that we would go on to murder a giant amoeba that, let's face it, was stronger than us, but I look prettier, so I get to win. That's not where I thought it would go. In the end, I'm glad I made it to Eden. But it took years, and I can get why. It's an intriguing mixed bag of a game, where everything bad is met with something good, and everything good can be bad when looked at another way. It's a unique spin on the RPG, leveraging a gamified concept of evolution in really charming ways as you deck out a monstrosity. But it's a grind, and one you'll need to repeat several times. Optionally, several more. But there are so many unique animals to see along the way to alleviate that repetition. The damage system is busted and the bosses are brutal, but we can exploit evolution to heal. And it's really rich that the villains are all those cheating the system, while Gaia keeps reviving us behind her dad's back, and well, we're not exactly squeaky clean besides. The premise is absurd and trips up a more fascinating and thoughtful game before it could even begin, but then it barely follows up on that premise anyway. The translation is amateurish and poorly written, but the story is so out there that it doesn't seem like there's much to take away from anyway. And the soundtrack, it's great. So let's spend most of the playtime hearing it at its worst. E.V.O may be far from the best game. I'd argue it's more interesting than enjoyable, but I struggle to think of other ways to spend hundreds of millions of years in 8 hours. There were a few things I did miss, like the Dragon Crystal, that would have come in handy, and in the same place is a bunch of free points to let you skip a big chunk of grinding as a bird. There's also mermaid form. That's sneaky. And it turns out those last dinosaurs were giving me a very awkwardly worded hint on how to become human. I like hidden things like this. It makes me think, oh hey, there was more to this game than I knew about. It just makes it feel much bigger in retrospect. So to become a human, we have to evolve a rabbit body and then cat-like jaws. And then a new option will unlock in the body menu to evolve a Ramorphicus body. After that, you are locked into this path. All you can do is change your size and evolve further. I'm going to be honest, I wanted to stop evolving here. We've peaked before peaking man. Maybe not. And here we are. We've finished the Ascent to man. His defense, health, and damage are great, but his attack for some reason no longer has any knockback, which makes combat incredibly dangerous. Plus there's so few level up options, it's incredibly expensive to use the evolution exploit. So in the end, humanity isn't worth it. Now, onto the most important thing I missed. This game is an evolution of another, a remake of a PC 98 title that never made its way to the West. But it got a fan translation in 2016, and there's a healthy PC 98 emulation community. There's a world of old Japanese computer games steadily becoming more accessible. So hey, let's follow up the first SNES title I've ever beaten with the first PC 98 title I'll ever play. I'll put a download in the description, so if you want, you can play along. A small warning before we go ahead with this game. For anyone who is sensitive to flashing lights or discordant audio, this game features an annoying amount of both at times, and they will be demonstrated in the video at points. This time, we open with a disclaimer, which after last, next time, well, it seems about right, but this is odd. Because what follows is a really good opening crawl concisely explaining the Big Bang, the formation of our solar system, and the events leading to our planet being able to sustain life. It then follows our development from a unicellular organism to a fish. This is all delivered beautifully, yet clearly. So following the disclaimer, this intro is more educational than the entirety of Search for Eden. The manual even has a foreword from the game's writer, science fiction author Kawamata Chiaki. It's a rather thought-provoking statement of intent about the message of E.V.O, asking if after 4.6 billion years of evolution, could things be different? Are we the correct beings to stand here? It's a nice message, and Kawamata hopes that after playing the game, we'll appreciate our existence a little bit more. Odd that this game is the one with a disclaimer. Maybe the other trusted the audience to not need one. The story opens with us washing up amongst a school of fellow Felidus. The other fish rush off to tell the elder when we awake. Well, I'll get around to them. There's a few creatures here to chat with first. Yep, this is now a top-down game and dizzyingly fast. I've checked other footage. This is what it's like. Either that or we're all wrong. Even a light tap of a directional key will shoot you off. It's nuts. So I'm lightly tapping my way everywhere. It's the only way to be controllable. Hey! All of these creatures are named correctly. Unlike last time where they were scared of getting sued by Kladosalaki, and the girls are into us. Yeah, I'm a looker, and I'm called a rake over it. Speak of the devil, and they shall come? I was guilty of it last time, but you guys are really ahead of the curve on your sayings. But then, how many ways can you translate? The elder says we turned up here beaten and battered before collapsing, and we're warmly welcomed. So I keep chatting, making myself known when a flash makes everyone in the village paranoid and violent. The elder blames us, but before he can attack, one of the girls comes to our defense. He gets a grip on himself, but still unsure if we're to blame, asks us to leave. As we're about to head off, that Felidus girl says she senses great power in us, and a pop-up says that, unbeknownst to us, the Felidus Sea would be swept away. And besides just giving us a safe place to get used to this movement, the game really could have started here and not much would be different. That was a very economical destruction of the peaceful RPG village. Now that we're out in the wild, everyone's itching for a fight. Theory of Evolution uses a more scientifically accurate form of conflict, the turn-based battle. Hey, this music gets a promotion in the other game, here it's just the standard encounter track. Good god, the other Felidus are way tougher than me. I have no great power, I put all my points in looks. I guess I'll have to bully jellyfish and hope I can evade everyone else. So, I was struggling at the start, there's no consumables, and while there is a recovery move, I figured it wouldn't be good. I'll learn later on, it's just as busted as evolving health. More so, actually. Getting an actual handle on combat isn't that hard, it's incredibly simplistic. Do attacks and the enemy will probably die first, unless you bungle leveling, which is also hard to do. Special attacks exist, but I think these exist more to add flavour to the animal combat rather than a great deal of mechanical depth. They cost a small amount of health to use and can either just deal damage, usually not much more than a standard attack, or apply a small handful of status effects. This isn't SMT, this is not a game of maintaining buffs and debuffs. Just mashing attack for the most part works. I use specials just to see the flavor text or because I felt guilty I wasn't trying to explore the mechanics. At a certain point it does become faster to spam specials, but that won't be for hundreds of millions of years. If an enemy has better stats, you can actually just use recover and steadily bring them down. Here's the thing, recover takes 2 turns, but you heal on both of them, and I never encountered a single foe who can outdamage the amount you heal. Not overall, on either turn. So again, recovery's busted. They carried that feature forward. You defeat creatures and you're given E.V.O genes, which are spent 1 for 1 on the E.V.O chart. I really like the E.V.O chart. Again, it's simple, but this is good simplicity, in that once you get it, it's easy to understand, but it's actually rather playful and ties into a handful of other systems in logical and interesting ways. You have 4 stats that have effects in both battle and the overworld. This time we're playing as different animals. Each block on the E.V.O chart is another creature, and what creature you're playing as has no bearing on stats. So you can wind up playing as the same creature several times, getting progressively stronger each go around. Different creatures do have access to different specials, but for now, this is not important. There's 2 forms of evolution, horizontal and vertical, with wisdom and endurance moving you left on the E.V.O chart, and attack and vitality to the right. Eventually, one of the stats will take more points to fill, and by filling that one out, you can evolve vertically, moving you to the next set of creatures with higher upgrade caps. Hey, what's this? You can evolve yourself into a genetic dead end and get a bad ending. The manual touts that there are 47 of these and encourages seeing them all. This may sound great or terrible to you. I think it's great. I should mention, this game is more forgiving than Gaia. It auto-saves at every evolution, and besides some short set pieces, you can save whenever you want. When you get a bad end, you'll plop back into the E.V.O chart menu with your points refunded. It knows these bad endings are for fun and doesn't penalise getting them. I did not expect this level of convenience from a 1990 title. And they're a great little resource, showing you the ways animal species can die off in comedic fashion, becoming too specialised for their niche, having no competition, changing environmental pressures that they can't keep up with, and so on. Search for Eden did have bad endings. Certain bosses would ask for you to side with them, and that'd give you something similar, but not as interesting, and these would boot you back to the start of the level. So, with evolution accounted for, it took 35 million years to cross the second screen of the game. I'm by no means a speedrunner. Once again, this chapter is fairly aimless. We're wandering the sea and getting into scrapes. We spend a few million years navigating a cave, at one point we run into a dead end, but luckily a meteor saves the day. Eventually, we do run into her. We find Gaia. She tells us our fates are intertwined and that we'll meet again millions of years from now at the coast. When we do find her, she's ready to evolve us into a tetrapod. A group of fish sit around studying her light with some hesitation, saying that it's for Gaia's chosen one. One of them decides to brave it. Yeah, guess not. Gaia's a little different this time around. Well, this coelacanth ain't giving up on evolution. A tree welcomes us to Pangaea, and as an ichthyostega, we're roughly 365 million years in the past. This game doesn't really mention dates or BC or anything. It throws the baby out with a baptismal on that one. What's more interesting is that stats just keep linearly rising between chapters, so even at my weakest right now, I could batter anything in the sea. Which makes sense. I am the fish roof. This time around the game just keeps the underwater track going. That track I disliked and its many variants are gone, and this just works a lot better for the game's more grounded tone. I wander into a nearby cave filled with friendly ichthyostega. They tell me their young went south in search of the flower of evolution, but have yet to return. The mood is dour, with many having decided to give up on evolution entirely. Meanwhile, this child just talks about the Eustenopteron now walking on land. I love how judgmental he is about it. Now, besides the fact that Eustenopteron used to be wrongly depicted as moving on land, and E.V.O may be playing on that, or just unaware it's false, I also think this ties into another facet of the E.V.O chart. Vertical evolution represents the passage of time. As we go down the chart, old species go extinct and new ones take their place, with enemies spawning in our row and the ones around us. It's a diegetic, dynamic enemy scaling system. The timeline presented is not terribly accurate. The same row may fluctuate tens of millions of years here and there, and you can go down the chart and wind up playing as creatures that would have actually died out sooner. It feels like they went with what made for an interesting growth over accuracy, and only got things really right at the start and the end of each chart. One thing Theory of Evolution got me doing that Search for Eden didn't is research. Whenever we evolve, we get an animal factoid, and we get told what era they inhabited. Between this and the intro, it actually got me curious to do some digging. I mean, nothing deeper than Wikipedia, but hey, it's something. Story-wise, I think this is really cool. It ties into a theme present in both games, but actually delivered on here. Say hello to this group of thugs. In each era, we run into more or less the same group, perhaps their descendants over millions of years. They're always chasing some rumor that will help them speed up their evolution in some fashion. At best, they're wasting their time. At worst, it winds up backfiring spectacularly on them. The vertical evolution system and the scaling difficulty of enemies on the E.V.O chart encourages spreading your stats out, evolving slowly and with balance rather than rushing or cheating the process. If you just force vertical evolutions, the animals you face will likely be stronger than you in some way. But if you go slowly and surely, you'll not only see everything on the chart, you'll stay on top of the competition. It's funny, this theme is kept in Search for Eden, but there it's just a vestigial element of the storytelling that no longer works. And yes, this is a cool idea, but it adds to the already healthy dose of grinding that needs to be done. I'll get to that in a second, but let's go check on those scouts. Hurt tiles! Certain biomes hurt to travel, and god, so much of this game is spent taking damage in-game and out. Even as over the course of the game less and less deals damage, it remains common and is more annoying than anything else. Naturally, there are also healing tiles, which means it's often a case of stopping and starting, or just camping a healing spot while grinding so you're never in any danger at all. Rejuvenating. And in a cave we find those scouts, all but one dead, and that one isn't going to last long. He asks us to tell his mother he's fine. As we head outside, there's a cloud of protophasma headed north, and after we make it back, we find the tribe massacred by the swarm. We tell the dying mother her child is fine, and she passes away peacefully. Search for Eden had oddly dark moments, but they always came across as more funny than tragic. Fear of Evolution pulls them off a bit better. It sometimes contrasts these moments with dark humor well, and the fact that not everyone likable we meet is going to get wiped out stops it from being bleak. Trying to head further south is a pain. There's a large stretch of desert that saps my health, and the enemies have gotten tougher. I wasn't evolving in a very balanced way yet, and I still hadn't realised that recover was busted. So while I'm stuck here, I'm grinding to break through. Here's the thing. We do need to vertically evolve. Certain story events are gated behind evolutionary progress, and each chapter ends with us completing the chart. The grind is a necessity, and you're punished if you try and rush the process. The battle gameplay doesn't change in any way until very late in the game. New eras and new E.V.O charts just means we're back to basic special moves, and as we go down the chart they open up again. Mechanically mostly the same but with different names and flavor texts. The game doesn't really get more difficult as it goes along, but chapter to chapter it resets the complexity, going from brain dead to simplistic each time. The combat in this game is a bread sandwich, there's just nothing to it, and owing to this and the grind, the manual even suggests turning up the text speed so you can just mash through combat faster. This does fix part of the problem, but it does make another issue worse. Many special attack noises which you and enemies throw out will interrupt and reset the battle music. It can get cacophonous and the faster speed just makes it even more chaotic. Luckily, there's another way to grind. Just move. At random intervals, we get hit by natural disasters. These do piddling damage and pay out a good amount of E.V.O genes. The manual says it's like hitting a jackpot. Yeah, getting caught in an earthquake. It's like I've won the genetic lottery. So as the game went on and my patience wore thin, I just walked back and forth hoping to get caught in a volcanic eruption. Once the cap on a chapter is hit, the fights and accidents are nothing more than delays. There are Gaia's hearts scattered in some mazes and these pay out E.V.O genes, but that's not going to let you skip all that much grinding. Then come next chapter it starts over, but the health bars zoom out and the numbers get bigger, so it really doesn't feel like anything has changed. And that's pretty much all the RPG elements covered. I'll bring up any new gameplay as it arrives. Now you know what we're contending with on this journey. Let's keep going. Theory of Evolution is far more story heavy than Search for Eden. A lot more complex, far higher aspirations, but it's also far better written. As we head south, things start going that way. We realise the desert is spreading, killing the plant life. It may be the bloody insects again. But the protophasma sodded off to the north. In fact, they never come up again. We come across a plant claiming to be the flower of evolution, but I don't buy it. Worse still, it's blocking our path. Nearby, we overhear those thugs I mentioned. They're also annoyed by the deception. Their plan to get past it stinks, but that's just what we need. There's something in the Great Marsh that scares the flower. We follow them over, fall into a swamp, and the stench that clings to us is so bad it kills the flower. This maze is weird to me. The entire left side of the map is an exit, and at some point we have to skirt along the left side. So the greatest hazard here is our character going a step too far over an invisible boundary and deciding to just leave. In this game, a step too far can begin from a good few meters away. Beyond the flower is a large portion of map sprawling in all directions, but for now, we need to head to this forest neighbouring a great desert. It's here that we find Gaia. She's the real flower of evolution, having taken the form of a plant from the future to inspire the local flora with its beauty. This comes off as insanely vain to me, and I doubt she has any idea how many people have died misinterpreting the rumours. She begs us to stop the desertification. We're pointed to a strangely shaped mountain in the northwest causing it. So I head out and, get lost, possibly for millions of years. Here's why. To get to that mountain in the northwest, we need to go to the forest guardians in the east. Not that I know that. But to get to the guardians in the east, we need to head to the southern end of the map, navigate to a glowing rock that teleports us beyond a mountain range, then the forest guardians point us to a big precarious rock to knock over. They also ask if I've heard the legend of when the golden planet saved us from the red one. No, that's news to me. I track down the rock, and knocking it over floods the desert. Decades then pass, so I don't feel bad about getting lost for 20 minutes afterwards, until I finally discover that it opened a passageway in the mountains. Yeah, this game isn't quite as straightforward. Eden was fucking easier to find than this. The strangely shaped mountain is a pyramid. We somehow read a sign warning us that the evolution rush system can't be used by unapproved individuals. And luckily we find an approved alien corpse up top, and he has a radio on his person, where we overhear an argument, warning that the Lunarians and the fourth planet walk the path of destruction, and someone is getting deceived by Lord Lucifer. Okay, so with that jolt of weirdness out the way, let's step back to the intro and that foreword by Kawamata, how it got me thinking, how it was setting the stage for a mystical story of life on Earth. Well, that foreword is followed by a 4-page timeline following the rise and fall of the Venusians, the Martians, various interplanetary wars, the rise and fall of Lunarian civilization, and all of it orchestrated by the devil, as she either devours or corrupts life. The timeline ends as our journey begins, with the devil arriving on Earth. The Felidus Sea turning violent, that was her doing. Well, good job, elderly Felidus, you doomed us all. This game tricked me. It lulled me into a false sense of security by seeming more grounded and a little bit more thoughtful, but then dialing the insanity far beyond anything in Search for Eden, while remaining more coherent, at the very least. In this plot, rather than a Sun-sponsored battle royale, we are Gaia's chosen life form, a being that exists alongside the Earth, aiding Gaia in making sure life thrives. And hey, considering this game doesn't have the time trans and our being experiences all of life, we may already be the longest lived being in video games. This is a much better setup in a lot of ways. It gives the player a far more understandable idea of their role in all this. I have a much clearer drive at basically every point in the story, which is ironic considering I spend a lot longer lost. And the thing is, unlike Search for Eden, which feeds you the premise off the bat, Theory of Evolution doesn't totally spell out who you are right away, but it's still a lot easier to follow. It's funny, the Battle Royale aspect in Eden is in a way clever by framing evolution as a competition, but it also winds up muddying the story. I still like this setup more owing to it being much more absurd, but it never delivered and often felt aimless. I think I've realised that it's because they're still using the plot progression from Theory of Evolution. So the setup has changed, but not the structure, and they no longer support one another. The structure is another vestigial part of the storytelling. Playing Theory of Evolution made me understand Search for Eden more, but also made it make less sense. I just love that a remake of a game about evolution couldn't adapt for its own circumstances. That out of the way, we take a gem from the alien corpse and use it to shut down the desertification machine. Gaia evolves us into a Seymoria, and we set off into the third chapter. The trees promise that for our help now, in the future they'll aid us by becoming coal. Cheers, lads. Could this tale get any weirder? It probably can. It's in this chapter, as we start going through the Permian, that a lot of fake creatures start filling up the chart. They don't have an entry, just a disclaimer. They're so mysterious that we don't even know what they non-existently did. On the bright side, we save a Lunarian up on a mountaintop. He hails Lucifer and tells us to head east to help our evolution. Cheers. We then spend a large portion of this chapter roaming the land looking for a rumoured fountain of evolution. You better believe those thugs are also on the lookout. And the plot takes a backseat as, hey, that's Italy. Time for a little stop off in Europe. Or well, what will soon be Europe. The Iberian Peninsula isn't here yet, so no holidays in Spain. But on the bright side, most of France is also missing. Hoo boy, you lot are not going to get on. Well, I could stand anywhere on Earth and say that. Iceland is blocked off by rocks, and the rest of the continent by a network of mountains. But by cutting through the beta block of Scandinavia, we're able to see the scenic maze of Central Europe. We eventually find the ruins where the Fountain of Evolution sits, surrounded by the unfortunate beings who drank from it. They don't look to be doing too well. If we partake, repeatedly, we're condemned to a more popular franchise. Game over. So that was a bust. As we head outside, we're confronted by a strange voice from the depths of the earth. Wanna see me wander blindly for a while? Nearby, we speak to Gaia. She tells us that was the devil, or as she calls herself, Lucifer, the false god. We see what she had in mind. She's blocking out the sun! Gaia herds the animals into a shrine to protect them. Excuse me, out the way, don't mind me, chosen one coming through. Sadly, these animals are peaceful, so I can't just smack them out the way. And so Nemesis blocks out the sun. A majority of life on Earth dies, and the survivors migrate south. Those that survived got a lot more confident as life rebounded with the dinosaurs. Well, not only are the dinos confident, but so's the music. That's a lot better right off the bat. Obviously the games share composition, so it's the same good music, just on worse hardware, but it uses the music a lot better. That aside, this may be my least favourite chapter. It's not only where the repetition really sets in, but it's where Theory of Evolution's worst elements hit its peak with nothing to balance it out. I've alluded to it before, but this game is a maze. Instead of boss fights, we have labyrinths. These labyrinths are filled with teleporter puzzles in a game where basically every part of the map looks the same, running water and pusher tiles that don't stick out from the background, and naturally, hazards that deal damage. The worst part, funnily enough, is just trying to turn corners. Yeah, these are cramped spaces, the corners where we can walk are not smoothed, so just taking a 90-degree turn has never been this daunting. Somehow, in a top-down game where we move around on foot, I am struggling to round a corner. Now, there is a saving grace. These tend to be very short, and while annoying, they're never really dangerous, which is actually worse in a way. It's less exciting, more tedious. Issue is, once we've done a maze, that means we're back in the overworld. The biggest maze of all. A puzzle of flags. In this chapter, an elder warns us of a cave containing a creature that fell from the heavens. By now, I'm completely jaded. I don't trust anything anyone tells me. But this is a kindly old reptile who talks my ear off. I head to that cave, and it turns out to be an ancient Lunarian lab filled with flame geysers. In any other game, these would be a cinch. Here, I burn to death. I hadn't evolved in a while, so I'm a ways back, and I can't figure out the way back to that cave. I am once again totally lost. And it turns out it's because the path I took to get there has closed shut. I have to go and talk to the descendants of those forest guardians. This scene doesn't advance the story. They just mention feeling like they know me and the forest gives me thanks with a handful of genes. For some reason, this action moves mountains. The first time I was headed to the lab, I just did this, but forgot to do it again after death. This game is a linear set of flags that arbitrarily and not always clearly modify the overworld. You're not always pointed to them, and they will be off in all directions. Back in the lab, I once again for the first time, yeah I know what I said, have to adapt for circumstance. I pump points into stats that make me move slower. On the other side of the lab we find a golem. It says we'll take on Lucifer and dies peacefully. On a nearby terminal we find a message being beamed into space on a loop, telling other Lunarians that there's a future for them on Earth and that they shouldn't fall for Lucifer's tricks again. To divert for a moment, we finally have a special slot move that matters. If your creature has a top slot attack, the game speeds up for a second. This does insane damage. I'm equally amused and disgusted as I roam the earth, mashing rats into paste with my head crest. Right, back to the maze. I climb into a Pteranodon village for some reason, and with his dying words, the Elder tells me of a prophecy that the world will end. And I need to go to the southern continent and tell Terran, knowing he'll believe him. There are other people in the village, but they stopped listening to the Elder. Turns out doomsayers are older than time immemorial. Elsewhere, we're told about the Lucifer Tyranno, a once-weak being who signed a pact with Lucifer to become strong. Once I find a way to the southern continent, I need to find a way to dig into his cave. I assumed I had to evolve into a burrowing creature. Nope, so I am once again blind. Eventually, on another continent, I discover that behind this village and some way up the coast is a clearing, where we find those thugs. Now a weak group of mammals getting steadily killed off. They decide to hide in Tyranno's cave, and this opens up the way. In the cave we come face to face with Tyranno, and he's actually pretty friendly. Having gotten free of Lucifer's control, he's just happy to have a visitor. But I don't know if this is the vibe they were going for and this scene is very well written, or just that my trust has been thoroughly eroded. But I spent the entire time we were talking on edge, certain that he was lulling me into a false sense of security before I get eaten. But no, he lets me pass. He's good to his word. And outside we run into Lucifersaurus, an even bigger bastard, and this one's still Lucifer's thrall. He won't let me pass. Not that I'm sure why I need to, that's just a big C behind him. Either way, I get ready for a boss fight, but no, that's not happening. Turns out I have to go and squeal to Tyranno. That bastard! He hasn't realised he's been deceived by Lucifer yet! See if you can catch this cutscene. Whoop! Little Dizzy. He asks Lucifersaurus to let us pass, but it doesn't work. And the two come to blows, landing mutual kills on one another. Tyranno seemingly content to have helped a friend in death. and we come face to face with Marilyn Monroe, playing the role of Lucifer. She claims to have made the universe and offers us a chance to work for her. Well, after cleaning the spit off of Tyranno's corpse, I turn it down, since it's a rather weak ending. Lucifer doesn't take rejection well, and says next time we meet, we'll disappear forever. We then cross a giant ocean. I'll spare you. Oh no, Gaia's crying. Well, my eyes are red too. Lucifer summoned the King of Terror. She collects herself and tells me to once again gather the creatures to shepherd them to safety. Again, this takes a few somewhat unintuitive steps to do, but luckily they're all in a confined space for once. God damn it. Gaia, why did you put the shrine behind another maze? And as we hunker down, we're evolved into Pteranodon. Oh! King of Terror. It just hit me. And Lucifer, assured in her victory, buggers off into space, sure the world is dead. A series of slides follows the ecological effects of the impact, species dying out, an ice age. But life marched on, because theory of evolution seems to be very pro-natural disaster. So we once again find ourselves on the cusp of mankind, and much like last time, this chapter goes a little bit bonkers. It starts saying, Gaia tells us that life progressed while she healed her wounds, you can't keep a good Gaia down. Now our job is to go out and amass the wisdom necessary to lead the creatures of this planet. Sounds good. Then I start evolving, and things seem a little off. So I've started off as Pteranodon, and I'm fighting monster Tyrannos. Now I put them down to Lucifer's leftover influence, but then... I've never heard of this Kung Fu dinosaur. I'm pretty sure I would have, but it has an entry. It's not flagged up as fake. I talked to a friendly Pleopithecus about a mammoth under attack by saber-toothed tigers. Well, all of those things are real. But here I am, being a Coamatepis and disturbing the fabric of reality. This goes on for a while. I become a dinosaur bear thing, then slowly and surely become more human-shaped, until I hit Homo Dino Erectus. He looks as confused as I do. So, are you ready for my favourite creature? Real or fake? Ever? I'm sure when Kawamata asked if the evolutionary path we're on was the right one, he asked because he knew it was the wrong track. And it's because we never became Homo Dino Sapien. This is the peak of evolution we never saw. I love this guy. So, I made an assumption about what happened here. The E.V.O chart in this chapter is split in two. In the last chapter, mammals were on the left and reptiles on the right. So by ending this chapter as a T-Rex, we've gone down a speculative path where it was reptiles who took the place of man. Which is an interesting... Okay, never mind. I'm a goddamn goblin. I also run into worms, elves, and gnomes. I wasn't aware these creatures shared a common ancestor in the bloody Tyrannosaurus. Oh, in this chapter, as we get into more intelligent species, the strongest special move in the game unlocks. Throwing rocks. It turns out, against a very fast rock, there's no such thing as a fair fight. Yet throughout this chapter, we're interacting with real creatures like Australopithecus and the Yeti. That's because the side of the chart we're not on features mammals leading up to Homo sapien. This chapter is split into historical and fantasy versions, turning one of the most pivotal points in our coming into being very, very strange. Because, well, spoilers, either way, we become human. Also, just to repeat a gag that's gotten more absurd, due to linear stats, this means a goblin could body every single dinosaur to ever walk the earth. Easy. I like that. Meanwhile, on the other side, thanks to story events being blocked by vertical evolution, an ape can't climb up a vine. This chapter does have a neat gimmick. Gaia asks us to amass wisdom. Through picking up a bone to defend a mammoth, we learn to use tools. A tribe of herbivorous primates ask us to scare a band of violent carnivores into submission, so we scare them with fire. God, the maze to scare the carnivores is awful. You have to evade them, not because they fight you, but because they talk. And since their movements are predefined and they don't care for you, you can exit a dialogue only for them to instantly touch you and trigger it again. I genuinely thought I was stuck at points, as I have to mash through a conversation multiple times until they decide to change direction. And as thanks, we're given furs, allowing us to live in colder climates away from these chatterboxes. Narratively, this chapter is really cool. We're traveling the land, helping others, and expanding our knowledge. Mechanically, it adds an item menu to battles. These are equipables that just give us access to the same status effects we already had. They don't cost health to use, but since they cost a turn to equip, they cost health to use. We also learn about UFOs. Or FOs, seeing as Gaia identifies them as Lunarian ships, ferrying tens of thousands of moonmen at the end of a 200 million year journey. Then the ships split up in the sky, headed east and west. Gaia isn't sure why, so she opens up Shambhala to let us inspect them. Yeah, you know Shambhala? It turns out it's just a connecting passageway between Atlantis and Mu. The Atlantean Lunarians are a warlike tribe with cannons primed to fire on Mu. They have sworn allegiance to Lucifer. I can't do anything here, no sabotaging the cannons, no talking them out of it, and since I'm just a dumb animal, I guess they just let me wander around? But then, what, are you going to question a Gorgon? Meanwhile in Mu, we eavesdrop on a panicked meeting between the leaders, before the king comes in to make a decision. Well, it's a good thing this guy's wearing the crown. They go back and forth on whether to retaliate, before the king decides it's wrong for any Lunarian to be on Earth. Ultimately, the planet should belong to the creatures who evolved along with it. The Atlanteans begin their attack, the king urges his people to flee, then he hits a switch to sink Atlantis and Mu, while everyone buggers off. Gaia's thankful, and we learn a valuable lesson in, not interfering. It's time to talk about spirit science. Now, spirit science is one of those cult things, and scams like this tend to be litigious, so I should watch what I say. It functions like a best-of collection of New Age beliefs, a hot pot of hocus pocus, a stockpile of chicanery. If you want to do your own research, Spirit Science has a YouTube channel, but I'll stick to the interesting and relevant bits. Spirit Science was formed in 2011, but is based heavily on the writings of Zacharias Sitchin.
So this is the planet that remains in orbit.
And that guy had been running his hustle since the 70s. And while I'm unsure how inspired Kawamata was, I mean, after all, the guy's a sci-fi author, imagination comes with the territory, there is a lot of odd overlap. It's not impossible he was at least aware, since Sitchin's writings made their way to Japan and had a small impact. Shortly after the game, I was shown The Hidden Human History. Watching the video is a drive-by assault on the senses.
The Lemurian body of consciousness had only reached the age of 12 as a planetary consciousness. Because we were right-brained, we were a female species.
Every time it seems like the video is losing steam, it will up the ante on insanity like it's nothing and keep going.
There was a time, long ago, when humans existed at a very high level of consciousness. We were interdimensional and were very psychic. We communicated through thought and emotion, much like how animals do rather than speaking or writing.
Psychic communication between animals, huh? And despite being one of the less anti-Semitic cults I've seen, it still posits that Hebrews came from space. What did the Lunarians have? A golem, a piece of Jewish folklore. In E.V.O, the Martians were corrupted and made violent by Lucifer. In spirit science, they were led astray by the Lucifer experiment before coming to Earth. There's also Lemuria, also known as Mu, sinking. This raised Atlantis. Granted, in this game, Lemuria sunk both. Lemuria sunk because we reached a higher level of consciousness, which, well, I mean, the king had a revelation before it sank. You always need to find your own spin. And I know Atlantis, Lemuria, Lucifer, the Martians, these are all old hat, part of many stories, but both E.V.O and Spirit Science bring them together. Now, I'm not a gullible rich person with too much free time, a sense of existential dread, or money to get past the tax man, so I don't know much New Age stuff. So maybe this stuff just all comes up a ton in these writings. But hey, once again, Theory of Evolution got me doing research, and made me want to spew a bunch of weird stuff I learned recently. Also, the moon is hollow. So, I gained wisdom, but also racked up a bunch of insanity points. We wake up on an unknown beach, and Lucifer must have heard the rumpus, because she's back and she's pissed. Pissed off enough to challenge us to single combat on the southwest continent, and considering I just found Britain again, that's probably Africa. You know, the backstory has really oversold Lucifer, She's having an off millennia. That backstory has her deceiving and destroying civilized peoples. Meanwhile, she's basically trying and failing to squash a bug. It's embarrassing that we're not dead. As we fight through the elven mountain maze of Africa, a Neanderthal tells us something fell on the southern plateau. It's there that one of Lucifer's imps tells us to head to Stonehenge. And after realizing it was probably in the door behind him, I head back. Yep, one last teleporter maze. It's got a pretty cool, unique enemy. And I come to, well, a henge made of stone, but where's Lucifer? Once again, it's a maze of flags, and Lucifer is late. She won't turn up until we find a tablet filled with magic spells given to us by the Creator. These spells do things we could already do, but the flavor text is longer. With this, we're blessed with wisdom, which is strange. I thought I already maxed that out this chapter. Okay, here again. Lucifer, seeing we have the tablet, decides to take this fight seriously and reveals her true form. I'll admit, that got a jump out of me the first time. The art is just really cool overall. The fight starts, and it's a bit of a shame it uses the standard battle music. We finally have a boss fight. It could have kept running Lucifer's theme and it would have been stronger. And, well, this fight is a bastard. For whatever reason, in spite of the combat system, I kept wanting a boss fight. And I must have made a deal with the devil because here we are. She deals insane damage. I am maybe a turn or two away from death at all times. Not to mention all of her attacks are specials with really wordy descriptions. So her turns are slow, it just drags everything out. I die a lot. And I consider turning the text speed up, but that's terrifying because I know a cutscene will follow this. And when you turn that up, it becomes really easy to accidentally skip dialogue. I don't want to miss any story, it's what I'm here for. Eventually I realize I can't take a moment to fight back, and she's using specials. So I'll just let her tire herself out. Then when she's on the edge of... Well, okay, this will take longer. When she's weak, I'll just go in with a killer blow. This isn't a foolproof plan. If she picks the right attacks in a row, I'm dead anyway, but this proved far safer than actually trying to fight, and eventually that opening came my way. Lucifer, humiliated, swears revenge and flees the planet. Gaia is amazed by our victory, amazed that with the tablet we have the blessing of the Creator. She tells us to head to Eden. We've completed the 4.6 billion year ordeal. Oh, come on Gaia, the gameplay sucked, but I wouldn't call this an ordeal. In the Garden of Eden, baby. A woman has already ascended to Homo sapien, and it's time to join her. We place the tablet on a nearby altar, and Gaia grants us the power to evolve. What's this chapter been pushing us towards this whole time? Based on that fight, has to be endurance. I love this moment so dearly. This chapter is one of the most essential parts of our coming into being. And now, at the birth of mankind, what should be a powerful moment for the player, you can choose to fuck it up and make the whole thing a farce. Again. This chapter's incredible. Imagine the look on her face, as instead of becoming a man, we turn into a bearded dwarf and start bonking things. Yeah, you have to pick wisdom. And then Gaia departs and the two head off to lead the planet. We're asked which path we lead humanity down. I wonder. All but the right choice have unique bad endings. You get two fake choices back to back, and these endings are amazing. If we take humanity in an attack direction, we destroy ourselves in nuclear hellfire. Game over. If we take humanity in a vitality direction, we become an overpopulated, polluting party race. Our being drunkenly staggers through a megalopolis. I don't know how to say that. And for a moment, has nostalgic thoughts of early Earth and where did we go wrong, before pushing these depressing thoughts from our head and disappearing into the crowd. Game over. If we take humanity in an endurance direction, Humanity overcomes each and every problem it faces, stabilizes the environment, and is now populating the stars, pushing further and further into space owing to our hardiness and intelligence. But the main character's disappointed. Game over. What? I guess in that ending we may have been ignoring what we learned in Mew, but still, that's the most optimistic bad ending I've ever seen. Okay, well, having experienced all of that, I'm a lot wiser. Oh! We're not done yet. So 60,000 years and some drama later. Wait, 60,000? Humanity has become a planet-wide spiritual civilization under one government. Ah, anime, the apex of evolution. Oh my, you lot did not get on, did you? So now we lead the psychic peoples of Earth. And hey, the Fantasy Chapter 5 is canon, judging by the Homo Dinos still wandering about. We have a premonition of the devil returning, so we call the sages and head for the Southern Plateau for our final showdown. It's weird, everything that's happening is insane, but it's working. There's no music, just wind rushing. There's a sense of foreboding here. Well, there goes London. Our followers look on in worry as we approach the space lift, begging us not to go. I really love our internal narration calling these people we've never known a good bunch. Something about that coming from a being that's billions of years old. I don't know, it somehow feels like it means something. Though my favourite is this guy here, who says we have it all wrong, that we've only evolved because of Lucifer's meddling. She's our shadow and you can't fight your shadow. In a way, he's right. But are you really going to be a downer right now? Well, we're the leader of humanity, so we just ignore him and get on the lift. The sages link up with us. And I love the little image we get of the world as they call in. Most everyone just confirms where they are, but the European representative goes with, where the acid rains never stop. I'm really thinking the endurance ending was the better one. The devil appears and starts tearing the world asunder. In an instant, the sages are killed and their psychic energies being sent to us severed. We try and fight on regardless, but we can't make a dent. And despite being smashed to pieces, we're not dead. Gaia returns to tell us our spiritual body is still alive. And the devil, seeing Gaia, decides to show us what she's done to her sister. The moon isn't filled with hydraulics. It's got a giant monster inside. Gaia has a twist in return. She's the Earth. Yeah, I guessed that. She was ordered to hide until we had grown enough. And the time is now. So to defeat the devil, she grants us the energy of every being that's ever lived on Earth. Not to be outdone, the devil summons the power of every planet she's destroyed, and the final battle begins. You know, this is the first time I've played a game, gotten to the end, and really had to think, man, what a fucking journey. We started off killing jellyfish 500 million years ago, and now we're an incorporeal being of light throwing metaphorical dinosaur power at a demon bug that crawled out of the moon. It's pretty cool. Search for Eden couldn't quite get me thinking like this. It's a very easy fight mind. The only challenge is learning what each of our attacks actually do, which takes a turn, but hey, I can't knock this on spectacle. What an adventure this has been. Sure, it was long and often boring, but I'm happy to have experienced such an oddity. And after a long fought battle, we smashed the devil into atomic trash. Lucifer may be beat, but we have no body to return to. Our consciousness merges with Gaia's, and we hear the terror of the people back on Earth. I can't blame them for being unsure what just happened. Gaia lets us speak into everyone's minds, calming them down, before she interrupts with the dumbest thing I've ever read. Wait, what do you mean physical evolution ends here and now? Oh, sod it, we won. And so the Earth raves. Not quite a pale blue dot. And that concludes our 9.2 billion year journey. Both of the E.V.O titles are unique beasts filled with unique beasts, filled with gaslighting NPCs, unintentional stupidity, a lot of boring gameplay loaded with jank, with absurd approaches to gamifying and making a narrative out of evolution. They're odd entries in the canon of RPGs, but are loaded head to toe with charm. Theory of Evolution is a game of lower lows and higher highs than Search for Eden. The gameplay much more dull and dragged out, but I kept playing because I had to see all the creatures and uncover the bonkers plot. I had to know where that story was going, and I had no idea it was into space. I'm not disappointed. I can't think of many better ways to spend millions of years in 11 hours. Evolution as a gameplay mechanic is still something I feel is an underserved niche, and I don't think any game has ever really nailed it. It seems like a nice diegetic way to handle a leveling system, but obviously the reality is not so simple. Every game I've played incorporating it gets a different aspect right, but usually doesn't make for a great overall experience. E.V.O is probably as fascinating as it has gotten. I'll be glad to be proven wrong. In spite of the absurdity and the fact this is obviously not a science lesson, I can imagine E.V.O was great for getting young players interested in evolution and learning the reality for themselves. I just hope no one ever took either game as a real stab at a creation myth. And to top it all off and go back to that foreword, I think I do appreciate existence a little bit more after playing Kawamata, so thanks for that. I mean, except for the part where we're not Homo Dino Sapien. And I'm pretty sure I'm never going to make a video that covers a longer span of time, but it's nice to have an upper limit. And I should close off with a thank you to the translation team for letting us experience this odd odyssey of life. Fantastic work. This was to Snakera. If you want to support me in making more videos like this, you can spread this one around. If you want to support me more directly, I have a Patreon and a Ko-Fi. A coffee? I have no idea how it's said. The lovely people scrolling past have donated. Patrons get access to a Patreon Discord. Everyone gets thanks. At $3, you get access to my scripts and notes, and at $5, get access to afterthought videos where I round off my thoughts on the game, anything that didn't make it into the video proper, and I answer viewer questions and test things out in the game that I'm asked to. I hope to see you all next time.